Uh, if I don't know you, I'm Paul Whitkay, founder of the Alliance of CEOs, and I'm very excited for our latest edition of our Alliance series of roundtables on AI and how CEOs are using it. It's unbelievable these days of all the CEOs and leaders I get to work with and talk with. The speed of adoption and progress and is clearly hitting an inflection point. It's accelerating at mind-blowing speed. I mean, it's just unbelievable what's going on there. So I'm excited to today to welcome back our moderator, Matthew Swanson, the CEO of StaffAI, who's going to moderate for us today, and our very own member, Craig Hunter, CEO of Covalent, who made a few new things to his arsenal of leadership. So we're going to get going. If you want to, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in chat. There will also be, as people start filling up the room, there will be in chat a directory of attendees with links to your websites and your LinkedIn profile, so you can see who else is there. And one other thing, if you could help us all out by going to the top right of your own picture Zoom screen, click on the three dots and rename yourself with your company or organization after your name. That helps us know who's here. With that, Matthew, take it away.
All right. Thank you, Paul. And this is our first roundtable of the year, actually. It comes as agentic AI has entered the mainstream. The release of Cloud Code back in February knocked double-digit percentage points off of public sector indices, ranging as far as software companies to logistics to real estate. So the implication is clear. Investors are betting that fully autonomous AI agents will change the nature of how work gets done and how businesses compete. Today, we'll hear from a fellow Alliance CEO, Craig Hunter, who has created an AI agent that services as his digital twin, or CraigBot. Craig will share how he is using his AI to service as a first line of contact for his internal team, allowing him to always be available to his leadership team. Craig will also share how his AI roadmap of new digital twin personas is forming and how his team is working toward using these personas to improve each part of his business. So as way of introduction, Craig is the founder and CEO of Covalent, a Silicon Valley-based company providing advanced analytical and materials characterization services across over 30 industries. So Craig, thank you for joining us today. To get things started, we like to kick off with a set of rapid fire questions to help orient the conversation. So first up, there are a lot of different model providers to choose from Anthropic to OpenAI to Gemini. Which AI model does your company use the most?
So we have we have different use cases. We have the internal bots that we're using just to kind of run the business more efficiently internally. We're actually developing customer-facing AI that is a much more complicated stack with graph databases and orchestration agents and all sorts of stuff. And it's, I think, primarily based on Gemini, but I think it's multi-model, if I understand it correctly. What we use internally is ChatGPT. We have a corporate license. I think we have corporate licenses to all three of them, but the one that we're kind of building our persona strategies around is ChatGPT.
Good to know. All right. And next question, to give us a sense of your business priorities, what is your most important AI initiative this quarter?
We are about to release to certain beta customers a quoting AI. So in our business, a customer will come and say, I have 5 samples. I'd like to analyze the chemistry or the surface structure or the roughness or some sort of physical, chemical, optical property. And we have a price book. And the price book sometimes is based upon a per sample basis, which is more straightforward, but sometimes it's a per hour, like how many hours on a tool. And so we have been working hard on developing an AI agent that can basically estimate not only what technique is appropriate or optimal for your solution, but actually estimate how many hours it would take of human time and machine time. And so we believe we're very close. We're within a couple of weeks of releasing that to our beta customers. So that's the highest priority.
Well, that's very exciting. Our last question here will be, we talk a lot about how AI can improve our lives. So here's a fun one for you. What's one way AI has freed you up to be a better person?
So I was thinking about, what is the purpose of this digital bot, and how do I use it, and how are other people using it? And I've now had I don't know, 6 or 8 weeks of people giving me some feedback. They used it for this, and one of the things I always ask them is, is the bot giving you a better answer than the real thing? And to be honest, I'm a fairly I think I'm a fairly steady guy, but I'm emotional. Like, it's tough things starting a company. You have your tough days, your good days, your bad days. The variability of my response when a internal stakeholder, a manager asks me a question about how would I do this, or what do you think of this? I think I'm actually, from an AI kind of bot perspective, I'm kind of crappy. Depends on whether you got me in a good mood. Was I feeling focused at the time? So I'm kind of all over the map, I would guess. Within bounds. Hopefully I'm still relatively effective as a human being. But what I've noticed is that the bot is much more systematic, and the bot is much more reliable in the quality of its responses.
Wow, that's very practical and very relevant to our talk track, which we're going to jump into now. So, we typically like to showcase AI in action as a way of teeing up our conversations. Craig, you have been using AI in production settings with your digital twin. Can you take us through an example of CraigBot in action?
Sure. All right, so I'm going to share my screen, and I am leaving aside the creation of CraigBot, and we can go through that. How do you create one of these things? But these are custom GPTs. And by the way, kudos to Paul for the Alliance of CEOs setting up the initial training, because I think the reason I'm here is that I'm not an AI expert. Like, I'm not even a particularly early adopter software guy. I don't know how to Python code. I'm a guy who went to a 2-hour training session because I was curious and believed that there's a lot going on and I need to learn more. And I was fired up enough about what the speaker Sam was teaching us, and it was so dead easy to do, that I started. My mind was kind of firing about all the ways that I could create personas. This seemed like a really powerful concept to basically create a GPT with a perspective, a custom GPT that had a particular view on things that would make it more effective in responding and advising and so on. And so I had this idea of my own bot, and I've had some other ideas we might get into later. So I went and I created this thing, and I started just using it a little bit, and I was enthused enough that I created an all-hands team meeting for the whole company. And so I had 80 people invited to learn how to make custom GPTs. And what I did is I made the CraigBot live, and I souped it up a little bit later, and then I released it to all employees. So everybody has a license that wants it, and everybody can use this thing that wants it. And one of the early inspirations was my software team had come to me, and they were presenting their plan for Q1. And I was unimpressed with the quality of the presentation. I didn't think they nailed it. My software leader knows that I would say this, so throwing him under the bus a little bit. But I uploaded a PDF version to the CraigBot after I had created it. And I just said, I just updated this, but please review this presentation. I'm going to meet with the real Craig Hunter tomorrow. Please provide feedback. And so this is a very direct and frankly better feedback than I gave it live, because I had already gone through the real meeting, and I was teaching these guys, hey, please do this in the future. Try it with the CraigBot first. But it was very hard on them, like that this is not a well-structured presentation. You got to start with why this quarter matters. You got to stay from vague laundry lists of things you're going to do and make it more concrete. So anyway, I'm not going to go through this whole thing, but I would say the quality of this response relative to what I had given live in the real meeting was actually better. This was better feedback for them. So then I was in the process of creating our goals, our annual operating plan for our board. And I started off, I had created a set of goals, and I won't go through it all, but this was a PowerPoint slide I made that was getting ready for a board meeting. And I said, do these goals feel well structured, actionable, aggressive? And then they said, yes, they're directionally strong, but, and they started giving me feedback. This is too vague. This isn't actionable. And so they went through and said, hey, like, this is really specific feedback on your goals. I went all the way through this. I tried again. And by the way, I had shared this draft goal with my board of directors, and my board was much nicer than the CraigBot in responding to my goals. They were like, actually pretty good. Like, they give me some feedback, but not much. But I went through this and I said, okay, I'll do it again. So I took a crack at a better structured, and I said, is this better? And it said, yes, this is materially better. And because I was starting to hone in on it being more concrete, they then told me why it thinks it's better. And so gave me some specific advices to do. And then I finally came back and I said, okay, like I've edited it again. Like, what do you think about this? And said, yes, now this is a very strong, operationally ready set of goals. So this was great. Like, these are our goals. As I created our annual operating plan with GPT help. So that's been very good. By the way, for those of you that went through the training on the Gen AI, you already know that one of the things you did was to create a strategy bot, like a strategy advisor. And it's very interesting. You could, I think, use the same model, but just the concept of it being a different persona. Is the role to be a strategy advisor, or is the role to be a digital twin? So I tested my strategy advisor against my digital twin on a couple of things. So I said, for example, what's summarize Covalent's 2026 goals? And this is my strategy advisor, the Covalent Metrology Edge bot. And it went through and it gave me, nice set of goals or a summary. But at the end, it actually said, hey, wait, you've got some gaps, you've got some problems, some things you got to get through. And which is what the strategy advisor was supposed to tell me. Whereas when I went to the Covalent or to the CraigBot and I did the same thing, it was simpler. And remember, this is intended for employee use. This is something that the employees should be able to use. It didn't talk about the gaps and the problems. It was, I guess, well structured enough that it came back just with the summary without offering opinions about the gaps in my plan. And so I thought this was a very nice, well-structured set of summary. I've actually just released this to my employees. I even went through and I did it again. I was asking, these different bots, hey, I'm meeting with all these Silicon Valley executives. Give me 3 points. I asked the strategy advisor. I went through and I asked the CraigBot for the same thing. And then I changed models and I did it again. And I got to say, bottom line, the quality of the responses across all these is pretty damn good. There are nuances and differences and perspective and what gets in and what doesn't get in and how it gets structured. But I have to say, having now used this for a couple of months, I'm really impressed.
Excellent, Craig. Thank you for sharing that with us. I think the impact is obvious, right? If you can have your team ask your digital twin as a first line of defense, that's just time saving all day long. And it's sounding like you're actually getting new perspectives from the responses here as well. We can move into our talk track here. Again, thank you for sharing. One question that came up already is, people who attended the Alliance hosted Gen AI Academy probably recognize some of what they're seeing here. But for those who haven't, maybe you can take us through briefly, what was it like to set up? You already kind of presented yourself as a non-technical CEO, and it sounds like you did this all by yourself. Can you just give us the quick?
Yeah, it's so easy.
And you're muted now, Craig.
Okay, you're good?
You're here.
Muted.
Yep.
Okay. It's really simple. And all you do, well, first of all, I'm going to skip all of the talk points as to how do you set up your personalization So if you don't know how to personalize your GPT, this is a corporate account. In my case, our CTO did connect it to our corporate systems. So there's a so-called knowledge database, a company knowledge database that's connected to this GPT. But when you go through and you personalize it, I would just advise you to take a look at some of these things and make sure that you're not sharing your data with OpenAI, and it kind of gives you an opportunity to give it custom instructions about being brief and to the point and honest and so on. So that's actually an important part of it, but I'm not going to go into all that. So when you want to set up a new custom GPT, you go to the left side of your GPT screen, you just say explore GPTs, and you'll see up in the upper right-hand corner this My GPTs or create. And you just press create. And, you can name it Fred. You can add whatever you want. Or actually, what's a pretty good way to do it, I didn't do it at the beginning, but I more recently did this, is you just type in, what are you looking to create? I am looking to create a digital twin of my wife. So when you do that, it's going to go through and kind of like, it doesn't know who my wife is, so it's not going to know how the heck to do that. But at least it will go through into this configuration. It will populate these things to the best of its ability and figure out how to fill it in. So there you go. It has some basic instructions. Now you can tweak these. You can name it whatever you want. And so you don't have to give it a prompt or instructions that you created, but you can. One of the things I did early on is I just said, hey, GPT, I'm creating this thing. What do you think would be a good set of custom instructions? And that's what I use for my CraigBot. So it'll fill in these custom instructions, and then it gives.
Oh, we got you.
I don't know why.
There you are.
Somehow I keep getting muted, but it'll come up with some conversation starters. And then this is key down here below. Upload files is where you have the opportunity to put in kind of the training documents, if you will. So in the case of my strategy bot, I put in my bio off LinkedIn. I went and printed out my CV off LinkedIn. I put in, the transcript of a blog I had written. I put in, the bio sheet for my website. And then I put in my investor deck. I put in the summary financials of all the historical financials of the company, which are in a simplified format. And then critically, and this seems to be the most impactful thing that I did, is I took the most recent board deck and I deleted all the extraneous stuff. And I just had the content that had my goals for the company for the year, and including the departmental goals. And I made a PDF of it, and I uploaded the PDF of the board goals, or the board excerpt, if you will. And then you're apparently supposed to do that, because you can connect it to apps and so on. I connected mine to my Outlook. But I think in terms of the functionality, just doing what I just did is the basics, and the uploading of the files is super critical. So having the right perspective and having the right, training docs, if you will. Yep. And then when you're done, you just say create, and off it goes, and it creates it.
And that's readily accessible to anyone today. So yeah, thank you for taking us through. That's a really simple way to get started to using these agentic AI use cases. You shared a couple with us. Maybe we can get into the roadmap here. So, you're currently using this with your software team and providing feedback and coaching there. What are some of the next digital personas you're looking to create?
Yeah, actually, I wanted to just briefly share feedback from my HR manager. She's actually the one who uses it the most. I think I've had about half a dozen people come to me with stories, but this is the one I like the best. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
All right. So my HR manager says, hey, this isn't really a decision-making tool on its own. It's just, that's not a knock. It's just, that's the way it is. Real decisions depend on a ton of context, and it's changing all the time, shifting priorities. It's just not something that any bot really can keep up with. Where it shines is as a thought partner. It's really good at giving perspective. By the way, I wonder if she used the CraigBot to come up with this response. It was a pretty good response. She said, it's really good at giving perspective, creating back and forth, and helping you work through an idea until it's more polished and more useful. It pushes your thinking. It's less of a decision engine and more of a conversation engine. What makes it especially effective is that it mirrors how I think. And when you think about the bottlenecks on growth and the bottlenecks on good decisions, I don't know how you guys are. I am inconsistent in my ability to communicate so clearly, so frequently that everybody on my team just knows what we're doing, what's important, what are our goals. And so I feel like as much as I'm trying to always let everybody know what we're doing and why, I know for a fact it's just not sinking in all the time, whether people just have different perspectives, they're not listening to the way I think they are, or whatever it is. And so having a tool that can mirror, I mean, it actually uses some of the phrases that I tend to use, like in my blog posts. So it does a pretty good job of mimicking my thought processes, how I communicate. And if people can access that with no friction, then, I mean, that's just giving me leverage. It's like the old, I don't know how many of you remember the Michael Keaton movie, Multiplicity, but it's just, it multiplies you, right? And so at the end of the day, she says, there are times when it's not right, other times when it's better, but the real value isn't replacing human judgment, it's elevating it. It helps you think before you decide. So anyway, I hope that's useful to give her perspective, and she's a very frequent user of this thing. Now, getting back to your question, Matthew, about the roadmap. So my mind is spinning about all the different ways that personas can help in different parts of the business. We are an expert analytical services company. And there are times when a person talking to the customer on behalf of the company is not an expert in that particular area. Maybe they're an expert in electron microscopy. They're not an expert in analytical chemistry. And the guy who is an expert in analytical chemistry is busy or distracted or whatever. And so I went through and I created, this is like inductively coupled plasma mass spectroscopy. So I created an expert bot that mimics that guy, the analytical chemist. And I uploaded the specification for the tools that he uses. I said to the bot, hey, you're an expert, ICP-MS expert who's advising customers. You work at Covalent Metrology. Here's Covalent's website. So I gave it all its perspective. And I just did the same thing with another guy. I'm calling it the Choji bot. He's an expert in nuclear magnetic resonance. And I've been testing it with these guys. And they've been sending me real customer questions that are really technical questions. And I've been saying, all right, let me test it against the Choji bot or the ICP-MS bot. And it's amazing. It's not just that it's like basically telling you what you can do or can't do, but it's actually giving you advice as to how to operate the machine. It's giving you recipe advice, which is surprising to me. I didn't expect that. So from a roadmap perspective, with regard to this particular concept of personas, I'm really intrigued about having customer-facing expert advisory bots that at minimum can advise, whether it's 2 a.m, what doesn't matter. They're just always available. Hey, what's the right technique for this? How can I think about this? And it's basically, a lot of that stuff is available through GPT or Gemini or Claude. It's not like we have any kind of special knowledge of material science that the rest of the world doesn't. But we know what tools we have. We know what volumes you need to send to us. We know how we price. We know what our lead times are. We have a lot of commercial relevant context that only we can provide that can very quickly get wrapped into that conversation. So I want to basically use this concept of personas to amplify. And it's not just about having always on experts. It actually is about improving the quality of your technical recommendation. Because even the best of our PhDs out here in the company suffer from recency bias, or they suffer from things that that's what they know better, and they're going to tend to always recommend that. So this is really more of an honest broker that's truly independent and can give great advice. So at minimum, it's a great human-in-the-loop AI tool that our experts can use, but I think progressively our customers are going to want to interact with it directly as well.
Right. So that would get into marketing, sales, support, some primary functions of your business. One implication of that is obviously the org chart. And so how do you think about what you're experiencing here, these new capabilities, and your hiring plans?
So one thing, well, first of all, I think probably more important than trying to get your people to embrace it is if you're in growth mode and you're hiring, then you should absolutely be hiring for this and looking for, early adopter mindsets and profiles. I think that's trying to plant seeds. I've been looking at department by department and looking where are the sprouts, where are the people like, oh, that person seems to be an aggressive user. What can I do to encourage them and give them more sunlight and water and let them grow? But one thing I did, which I think is so far turning out well, I can't say like it's definitely going to work, but I think it looks pretty good. I hired a kid that's not a software kid. He's a couple of years out of Yale, history major, 25-year-old kid, but he knows Python coding and he's very personable. And I said, all right, your job is to learn how to use these tools and to be more of a native AI person. And I'm going to have you effectively be like a Trojan horse. I'm going to send you into different departments, and you're going to have to work with people in those departments to understand the workflows they have. And you're going to propose solutions and get them to automate their workflows. Because the software team I had tends to be more introverted and wasn't really like they're building software. They're not going out of their cube and interacting with other departments. And the other departments weren't necessarily aggressively embracing these things, and they're reluctant and they're in some cases fearful. Like, what is it going to mean for their job? So I have this new title called an AI transformation analyst, who's intentionally like, I can't compete with Google or Meta or any of these guys for top AI talent. I didn't care. I just wanted somebody with the right personality and profile, and I wanted to train them up and have them learn together.
So you basically hired a new role that you didn't have the need
That's
for
right.
until this capability came. And so you're using that to actually enhance your existing team. Is there any sort of change in, people that you had planned to hire this year that you aren't, or is it more about, growth mode? Like, how is your
Yeah.
organization
I
changing?
mean, obviously, the first question that a ton of people are going to have is, is this thing coming for my job? And we're very fortunate that I think in our case, the honest answer I can give, which I do give, is, our aspirations are to be 50 to 100 times bigger than we are. And we're 90 people now. I don't have a belief that we can do this. We have a physical lab with physical tools. We're not going to be a $1 billion company with less than 90 people in the business we're in. And so this isn't at all about replacing anybody here. This is, in my case at least, this is about what's the ratio of how many people we need to hire going forward. And it breaks my heart every time I see somebody doing something that just looks like, oh, that can be automated. That's dumb. Why are we still doing it that way? You can do better things, and we can focus you on more growth oriented activities. So it is changing my hiring plans going forward, just in terms of the number of people that I think we would need otherwise.
Right. So you can now expand market share, which is a great use case of applying AI. So, we're coming up at time. A closing question for you. I see a lot of great questions in the chat here, and for those interested, Craig and I will be staying on after the breakout session to answer any of those. But last question for you, Craig, is there's a lot of CEOs here who were in your shoes 2 months ago and just getting started for the first time. What advice would you have for them?
I think that the reluctance that I am worried my team has in embracing these tools was a reflection of my own reluctance. And so as much as I could read the LinkedIn posts or the newspaper articles or whatever and hear that this is coming and it's going to transform my org, the honest reality is that I haven't been using it myself. I still write my own emails. I still do my own slides. And I dabble a little bit here and there and try things. But usually if it's I'm dissatisfied with the result, I give up. And I'll say, it's not ready. It's still a pain. It still hallucinates, whatever. But since I went through that training and since I hired that kid, and I'm like I'm sticking with it, and I just keep talking about it with the team. I keep asking that guy, like, what are you up to? What have you automated? What are you working on? Am I all hands? I think it's just consistency. And we found somebody on one of our technical teams who, without being told, just took 8 hours out of her Saturday one day, and she just started programming up scientific images using Claude Code and did all sorts of automated analysis that would have taken her forever if she had been doing it the old-fashioned way. And once we heard that story of her initiative, we immediately had her do a training, and we called like other people to go learn from her. So we're celebrating, like, we have the Covalent Way Award. We're trying to spotlight and celebrate and just stay on this and stay on it. And I think it won't be long before, and I've told people this, it won't be that just you're encouraged to use this stuff. There are going to be ways where we're going to, basically have it be part of your performance. That if you're not using it, then that's a problem.
Well, great CEOs lead by example, and it sounds like a case study right there. So thank you, Craig, for joining us and sharing your use case. We're going to now switch over to the breakout sessions. Everyone will have about 50 minutes before we come back to the main room, and we'll do a recap and close out at 3:30. And again, Craig and I will stay around 30 minutes after that if anyone has additional questions. And so with that, Paul and team, can we move over to the breakout?
Yep. Just before I do, push the button to go into your individual breakout rooms. Quickly, you should have a moderator, alliance moderator in each room, but for any reason they don't show up or lose their connection, somebody take charge. Everybody introduce yourselves very quickly. We only have about 50 minutes so it's not enough time to dig really deep. And half the reason is you're going to meet somebody in there that is actually very interesting and may have some reason to follow up with afterwards. But quick introductions, be ready to say what use case you might want to put on the table, whether it's something you want to share like Craig did today, or any questions. The moderator will pick the ones that are most interesting or impactful and keep moving. And then we'll come back at 20 minutes after the hour to the main lobby, summarize. And then for anybody who likes to stay, Craig and Matthew both agreed to stay on for another half hour if needed, just for informal discussions or questions and answers. So with that, let's get into our rooms and get at it.